woke as 10 huntresses dragged him. One whispered in his ear, "Don't scream, it will be quick." Rain pounded Ethan Ward's face, each drop a cold slap pulling him from darkness. His body ached, shrapnel wounds stinging across his ribs. He lay sprawled in the mud, the battlefield a churned mess of earth and blood. His gray Federation uniform clung to his skin, torn and heavy with crimson stains. Around him his squad lay still, their lifeless forms scattered like broken toys under a sky bruised with storm clouds. 20 men gone. He blinked, his breath shallow, tasting iron on his lips. A faint hum cut through the rain's rhythm. Ethan's hand twitched toward his rifle, half buried in the muck. Before he could grasp it, a spear's tip pressed against his chest, pinning him down. A silver-skinned huntress loomed above, her strength unnatural, her eyes glowing like ice under the faint moonlight. She wore armor patched from leather and scavenged metal, its edges sharp enough to cut the air. Behind her, more figures emerged from the mist, silent and predatory. Their leader stepped forward, her presence commanding the storm itself. Selene. Her metallic hair glinted, cascading over shoulders, clad in tribal gear, etched with glowing patterns. She crouched, assessing Ethan with a gaze that pierced like a blade. No words, just a cold calculation. He tried to speak, but his throat burned, words lost in the pain. Another huntress, broader, with darker silver skin, shoved through the group. Mara. A jagged scar ran across her throat, pulsing as she snarled. "Kill him now, Selene. He's Federation filth." Her voice was gravelly, her hand gripping a curved blade. Ethan tensed, his fingers brushing the mud, searching for anything to fight with. Mara's eyes burned with hate, but Selene raised a hand, silencing her. "Bind him," Selene said, her voice calm, unyielding. "He lives. For now." Mara's scar twitched, her glare promising death, but she obeyed. Rough hands yanked Ethan's arms back, ropes biting into his wrists. He didn't resist, not yet. His mind raced, guilt clawing at him. Why me? Why am I still breathing when they're not? His squad's faces flashed in his mind, their laughter from last night's campfire now a ghost. The huntresses dragged him through a silver forest, its trees shimmering under the moon's pale glow. Branches arched overhead, their leaves catching light like mirrors. Ethan stumbled, his boots sinking into soft earth, each step a reminder of his wounds. The air smelled of wet moss and something sharper, like ozone before a strike. He watched Selene move ahead, her steps silent, her armor reflecting slivers of moonlight. She didn't look back. Mara marched beside him, her blade close. "You don't belong here, soldier," she muttered. "You'll bleed for their sins." Ethan met her gaze, defiance sparking despite the pain. "If death's my path, I'll face it. But I'm not done yet." Mara's lip curled, but she said nothing, her scar a silent threat. The forest opened to a clearing, revealing the tribe's encampment. Campfires flickered, casting shadows on tents woven from silver bark. Warriors moved with purpose, their silver skin blending with the trees. Bioluminescent vines draped the camp, glowing faintly, painting the scene in hues of blue and green. Ethan's chest tightened. This wasn't just a camp. It was a fortress, alive with the pulse of a people forged by war. Selene stopped at the camp's center, turning to face Ethan. Her eyes held something he couldn't read. Not mercy, not hate. Something deeper. "You're alive because I allow it," she said, her voice low, carrying the weight of command. "Prove you're worth it." She nodded to a warrior, who tossed Ethan to the ground. Mud splashed his face, cold and gritty. He pushed himself up, his bound hands clumsy, his resolve hardening. The camp stirred, warriors gathering, their chants rising like a tide under the starlit sky. Ethan's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a stubborn need to survive. He'd lost everything, his squad, his mission. But he wasn't ready to die. Not here, not now. The campfires burned brighter, their flames dancing against the vast, endless night, pulling him toward an uncertain fate. Ethan hit the ground hard, knees sinking into the damp earth at the heart of the encampment. Warriors encircled him, their silver skin catching the moonlight, their chants a low rhythmic pulse that vibrated through the air. Tents of woven silver bark stood like sentinels, their surfaces shimmering with bioluminescent vines that cast a soft, eerie glow. The camp smelled of smoke and sweat, mingled with the sharp tang of polished steel. Ethan's wrists burned under the ropes, but he kept his eyes up, scanning the crowd. Selene stood on a raised platform of polished stone, her leather armor etched with glowing tribal patterns. Her metallic hair swayed as she raised a hand, silencing the chants. The warriors obeyed instantly, their discipline absolute. Mara paced nearby, her darker silver skin taut over muscled arms, her throat scar pulsing with each breath. She glared at Ethan, her curved blade glinting in the firelight. "He's an invader," she spat. "His blood should stain the earth, not our camp." Selene's gaze didn't waver. "He faces judgment, Mara. Not your blade. Not yet." Her voice carried a quiet force like a storm held in check. A warrior stepped forward, shoving a pistol into Ethan's bound hands. Its weight was familiar, a standard Federation sidearm, but the chamber held only one bullet. Selene's eyes locked onto his. "The last choice for honor," she said. "Use it wisely." Ethan's fingers tightened around the grip, his mind racing. One shot, one chance. The tribe's rituals unfolded around him. Warriors sharpened blades on whetstones, their movements precise, almost ceremonial. Others knelt before small altars, offering chants to the moon, its pale light bathing the camp in silver. Ethan watched, cataloging details like a soldier. The camp's layout, the warriors' weapons, the exits. Survival demanded it, but beneath the tactics, guilt gnawed at him. His squad's faces lingered in his mind, their voices silent now. "Why am I here?" he thought, the question a dull ache. Mara's voice cut through the chants, sharp and venomous. "He's Federation. They burned our villages, slaughtered our kin. He doesn't deserve to breathe our air." Her perspective was clear, etched in every line of her scarred face. Ethan was a symbol of everything she hated, a threat to the tribe's sacred ways. Her words rallied some warriors, their murmurs growing into a restless tide. Ethan met her glare, his jaw tight. "I didn't burn your villages," he said, voice low. "I fought for my people. Same as you." Selene stepped forward, her presence quelling the crowd. "Our history is blood and fire," she said, her voice carrying over the camp. "The Federation and Consortium carved our world into battlegrounds, but the prophecy speaks of a mediator, one who bridges worlds." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ethan studied her, noticing faint scars on her arms, irregular, unlike the tribe's ritual marks. They didn't belong. A question stirred in his mind, but he buried it, focusing on the moment. Mara's scar twitched as she stepped closer to Selene. "Prophecy? He's just a soldier, not some savior." "You're blind, Selene." Her voice trembled with fury, her loyalty to tradition a fire that refused to dim. The warriors shifted, some nodding, others uncertain. Ethan's hands tightened on the pistol, the single bullet a weight in his mind. He could feel the camp's tension, like a bowstring pulled taut. Selene raised a hand, her authority absolute. "He faces the trial by combat," she declared. "If the moon wills it, he lives. If not, he dies." The crowd fell silent, the weight of her words settling over them. Mara's eyes burned, but she stepped back, her blade still in hand. Ethan's chest tightened, the pistol cold against his palm. A trial, a chance. He'd fought worse odds. The camp stirred again, warriors preparing for the trial. Ethan's gaze drifted to Selene, her icy eyes unreadable. The scars on her arms nagged at him, a puzzle he couldn't place. The chants resumed, softer now, weaving through the firelight. Ethan stood, the ropes cutting into his wrists, the pistol a lifeline and a curse. The moon hung high, its light cold and unyielding, pulling him toward a fate he couldn't yet see. The encampment pulsed with tension, warriors sharpening blades under the moon's cold gaze. Ethan stood in the center, the pistol's single bullet heavy in his hand, its grip slick with sweat. Selene's words about the trial by combat echoed in his mind. But before the ritual could begin, a low hum split the air. It grew into a screech, sharp and mechanical. Black shapes, dozens of consortium drones, sliced through the night sky, their sleek hulls glinting like obsidian. Plasma bolts rained down, orange streaks igniting tents in bursts of flame. Warriors scattered, their chants replaced by shouts. Ethan, still bound, ducked as a bolt scorched the earth beside him. His Federation training kicked in, eyes scanning the drone's patterns. "Selene!" he yelled. "Their cores are ventral, unshielded. Hit there!" She turned, her metallic hair whipping in the chaos, her icy eyes narrowing. Mara snarled nearby, already swinging her blade at a low-flying drone, sparks flying as metal met metal. Selene darted forward, cutting Ethan's ropes with a swift slash of her dagger. She thrust a spear into his hands, its shaft carved with glowing runes. "Prove yourself," she said, her voice steady despite the firelight reflecting in her eyes. Ethan gripped the spear, its weight grounding him. He shouted coordinates, pointing out a drone banking left. Selene nodded, trusting him in the heat of battle, a fragile bond forming in the chaos. Together they charged. Ethan sprinted toward a burning tent, diving to avoid a plasma bolt. He spotted a drone hovering low, its core exposed, a pulsing red light beneath its chassis. With a grunt, he drove the spear into it, metal crunching as the drone sputtered and crashed. Selene moved like a shadow, her spear a blur, downing another with inhuman precision. Her agility was beyond human, a hint of something more in every leap. A young warrior, barely 20, fought nearby, her silver skin streaked with ash. Fear gripped her, her hands trembling as she swung her blade at a drone. She'd trained for this, but the reality of fire and death shook her. Yet watching Ethan, an outsider, fight with such skill, she felt a flicker of awe. He wasn't one of them, but he moved like he belonged. Her blade struck true, fueled by that spark, felling a drone. The camp became a battlefield, tents collapsing in flames, bioluminescent vines sizzling. Ethan and Selene fought back to back, his spear striking another drone's core, its explosion lighting the night. Selene saved him from a blast, tackling him as a plasma bolt seared the air where he'd stood. She was up in an instant, her speed unnatural, her eyes flashing with something ancient. Ethan caught his breath, questions about her piling up. The tribe repelled the drones, but the cost was heavy. 5 warriors lay dead, their silver skin dulled, their bodies crumpled amid the wreckage. Ethan stood, panting, the spear slick with oil and ash. Some warriors nodded at him, their grudging respect clear in their glances. Mara, however, glared, her throat scar pulsing as she cleaned her blade. "One fight doesn't make you ours," she muttered, turning away. Selene surveyed the damage, her face unreadable, but her shoulders tense. "The moonlit right will decide his fate," she declared, her voice cutting through the smoke. "Prepare the mountain." Warriors moved to obey, salvaging what they could from the ruined camp. Ethan gripped the spear, the pistol still tucked in his belt, its single bullet a quiet promise. He glanced at Selene, her scars catching the firelight. "What are you?" he wondered, the question burning as bright as the flames. The camp stirred, warriors hauling debris, their silver skins streaked with soot. Ethan's wounds ached, but he stood tall, the spear a steady weight. The moon hung above, full and unyielding, its light bathing the wreckage in silver. Selene's gaze met his, a flicker of something, trust, maybe, passing between them. The right loomed, a judgment that could end him, but for now he'd earned a breath, a moment in this strange silver world. The tribe ascended the mountain path, torches flickering against the silver light of the moon. Ethan followed, his steps heavy on the rocky trail, the spear from the drone fight still in his grip. Warriors flanked him, their silver skin glowing faintly, the air growing thinner with each climb. At the summit, a flat expanse opened, bathed in moonlight that turned everything ethereal. A stone altar stood at the center, carved with ancient runes that seemed to pulse with life. Ethan was led to the altar. The scent of burning herbs thick in the air, sweet and pungent, mingling with the chants rising from the gathered warriors. They formed a circle, their voices a low hum that resonated in his chest. Selene stood before the altar, her metallic hair catching the moon's glow, her armor etched with patterns that shimmered. She raised her arms and the chants swelled, the night alive with their rhythm. Selene began to recite the prophecy, her voice steady, weaving through the air like smoke. The mediator comes from the stars, a bridge between worlds, to unite or to doom. The words carried weight, echoing off the mountain walls. Ethan listened, the prophecy stirring something unfamiliar in him. Mara stood at the edge of the circle, her darker silver skin tense, her throat scar twitching as she clenched her fists. Mara stepped forward, interrupting the recitation, her voice cutting like a blade. Blasphemy, Selene. Sparing this outsider mocks our ways. Her scarred throat trembled with fury, her eyes locked on Selene. Warriors murmured, some nodding in agreement, the circle fracturing slightly. Ethan felt the shift, the air charged with dissent. From Ethan's view, the role thrust upon him clashed inside. He was a Federation soldier, bound by duty, yet the tribe's honor pulled at him, strange and compelling. His chest tightened, torn between oaths to a distant command and the raw truth of this moment. The blood from his wounds still stained his uniform, a reminder of what he'd lost. Selene turned to the tribe, her icy eyes scanning the faces. I am not what you think, she said, her voice dropping low. Half Federation, half of our blood, abandoned in an experiment gone wrong 20 years ago. The revelation hung in the air, heavy as the mountain stone. The tribe gasped, a wave of shock rippling through them. Some drew blades, grips tightening, while others knelt, whispering of the prophecy's vessel come true. Ethan's eyes widened, the faint scars on her arms making sense now. A hybrid. The Federation's hand in it twisted his gut. Selene stepped closer to him, drawing a small dagger from her belt. This mark seals recognition, she said, her voice soft but firm. She pressed the blade to his chest, carving sprawling lines into his skin. Pain flared, sharp and hot, but Ethan held still, the blood welling up in patterns that glowed faintly under the moon. Mara's face contorted, her loyalty to old ways cracking. You defile us all, she snarled, storming through the circle, her blade sheathed but her intent clear. She vanished into the shadows, vowing under her breath to defy this madness. The warriors watched her go, whispers of division spreading like cracks in ice. The rite wound down, Selene declaring Ethan the mediator, her words final. The circle broke, warriors dispersing with uneasy glances. Ethan touched the fresh marks on his chest, the pain a dull throb, the glow fading, but the weight remaining. The moon hung high, its light cold on the mountain, casting long shadows over the uncertain path ahead. Selene's gaze met his, a silent promise in her eyes, pulling him deeper into this fractured world. Dawn broke over the silver forest, its trees glinting as the first rays pierced the mist. Ethan stood at the encampment's edge, the blood marks on his chest still stinging, their faint glow hidden beneath his torn uniform. The air hummed with a new sound, a deep thrum that shook the ground. Federation dropships descended, their hulls gleaming with 500 terawatts of shielding, their sleek forms casting shadows over the camp. Dust swirled as they landed, their ramps hissing open. Director Crane emerged, his gray intelligence attire crisp against the forest shimmer. His sharp eyes scanned the camp, calculating. cold. Warriors tensed, gripping spears, but Selene raised a hand, holding them back. Ethan watched her, catching a flicker of betrayal in her icy gaze as she stood half hidden among the trees. Crane's voice cut through the morning air. "Selene, you're coming with us. A biological weapon doesn't get to roam free." Ethan was hauled before Crane, his wrists still raw from the ropes. The director's office was a mobile command unit, its sterile interior lined with screens flashing troop movements. Crane leaned forward, his voice smooth, manipulative. "Ward, you're a soldier. Help us secure her, and you're reinstated. Full honors." Ah, the offer hung heavy, appealing to Ethan's oath, the one he'd sworn under a different sky. But Selene's mercy, her scars, the blood marks, they pulled harder. A Federation officer stood nearby, his polished boots clicking as he paced. From his perspective, the tribe was nothing but savages, their silver skin and rituals a mockery of order. Yet Selene unnerved him. Her hybrid strength, her defiance, could tip the war. He gripped his rifle tighter, half expecting her to burst through the walls. Ethan caught his glance, recognizing the fear beneath the officer's discipline. Crane leaned closer, his voice dropping. "She's not your savior, Ward. She's a product, engineered in a lab. We'll dissect her, replicate her. The Federation needs that edge." Ethan's stomach churned. The scars on Selene's arms flashed in his mind, proof of a betrayal older than this war. He glanced out the command unit's window, spotting Selene at the forest's edge. Her eyes locked on him, hope and doubt warring in her gaze. Mara slipped through the camp, unnoticed by most, her throat scar pulsing as she met Crane in secret. Her voice was low, urgent. "Take her and leave us be. The tribe survives without her blasphemy." Her loyalty to tradition burned, outweighing her oath to Selene. Crane nodded, his smile thin, promising safety he'd never deliver. Ethan overheard, his heart sinking. Mara's betrayal was a blade in the tribe's back. Ethan's loyalty frayed, the blood marks a tether to Selene's prophecy. He remembered her sparing him, the pistol's single bullet still in his belt, a choice unmade. Crane's offer was tempting, return to the Federation, to order, to purpose. But the cost was Selene, her truth buried in a lab. Ethan's jaw tightened, his decision teetering. He glanced at Selene again, her silhouette sharp against the silver trees, a silent plea in her stance. The camp stirred, warriors watching the drop ships, their spears ready but outmatched. Crane's forces fanned out, their rifles humming with charged plasma. Ethan stood, released from the command unit, the pistol a cold weight at his side. Mara's betrayal lingered in his mind, a fracture in the tribe's unity. Selene's gaze held his, a question unspoken. The forest loomed behind her, its silver branches a shield against the coming storm. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the dawn mist. Ethan's hand brushed the pistol, its single bullet a promise of choice. Crane's voice echoed, ordering his men to prepare for extraction. Selene stepped closer to the camp's edge, her armor glinting, her eyes never leaving Ethan. The blood marks burned under his uniform, a reminder of the prophecy, of her trust. The Federation's shadow loomed, and Ethan stood caught between worlds, his next step a line he couldn't uncross. The silver forest pulsed with tension, its trees catching the last of the moonlight as dawn's edge crept closer. Ethan crouched behind a shimmering trunk, his breath steady, the pistol with its single bullet tucked in his belt. He'd overheard Mara's whispered deal with Crane, her words a bitter sting. She was gathering warriors, her throat scar pulsing as she rallied them to ambush Selene. Ethan slipped through the undergrowth, his Federation training guiding his steps. Silent and precise, he found Selene near a glowing vine, her spear in hand, her icy eyes scanning the camp. "Mara's turning on you," Ethan whispered, his voice low, urgent. "She's with Crane. They're coming." Selene's gaze hardened, but she nodded, her metallic hair glinting as she adjusted her grip. "Then we fight," she said, her tone cold but resolute. Ethan felt the blood marks on his chest throb, tying him to her cause. He'd chosen her over the Federation, a line crossed with no way back. The forest erupted in chaos. Mara's splinter group, a dozen warriors with silver skin and flashing blades, burst from the trees. Selene's loyalists met them, spears clashing, metal ringing against the silver bark. Ethan fought beside Selene, his military instincts sharp. He ducked a warrior's swing, slamming his spear's butt into their chests, sending them sprawling. The forest became a maze of flashing steel and glowing vines, the air thick with the scent of sap and blood. Selene moved like a storm, her hybrid strength a blur. She spun, her spear slicing through a warrior's guard, disarming them without killing. Her speed was unnatural, her eyes glowing brighter in the heat of battle. Ethan parried a blade, his training keeping him alive, but he couldn't match her. A warrior lunged at him and Selene intercepted, her spear a streak that sent the attacker reeling. "Stay close," she hissed, her voice cutting through the chaos. A wounded warrior, loyal to Mara, lay against a tree, his silver skin streaked with red. From his perspective, the fight was a betrayal of everything sacred. Mara's words had promised tradition, honor, but now he questioned them, watching Selene fight for the tribe's future. His breath hitched, pain clouding his thoughts. But Selene's vision, change, and survival stirred something new in him. Mara faced Selene in the heart of the fray, their duel lit by moonlight filtering through the silver canopy. Blades sparked, Mara's strength brutal, her scar pulsing with rage. "You've ruined us," she snarled, swinging hard. Selene parried, her movements fluid, precise. "The tribe must grow, Mara, or die," she countered, her voice steady. Their clash was a dance of fury and grace, the forest holding its breath. Ethan spotted a Federation scout drone hovering at the forest's edge, its red eye scanning. He sprinted, diving behind a tree as its sensor swept past. Using a stolen knife, he pried open its casing, disabling its tracking core with a quick twist. The drone sputtered, crashing into the undergrowth, keeping Crane's forces blind for now. He glanced back, seeing Selene and Mara locked in combat, the tribe's fate hanging between them. The skirmish slowed, Mara's warriors faltering. Selene disarmed Mara with a swift strike, pinning her against a tree, spear at her throat. "You're banished," Selene said, her voice cold but heavy with regret. "Go or die." Mara's eyes burned, but she lowered her blade, retreating into the shadows, her followers trailing, defeated. The forest fell quiet, the air heavy with the cost of division. Ethan and Selene retreated deeper into the trees, the camp too exposed now. Warriors loyal to Selene followed, their numbers thin but resolute. Ethan's chest ached. The blood marks were a constant reminder of his choice. Selene glanced at him, her eyes softening for a moment. "You chose us," she said, almost a question. Ethan nodded, the pistol's weight a silent vow. "No going back," he said, his voice firm. The silver forest closed around them, its shimmering branches a fragile shield. The moon dipped lower, casting long shadows, as the distant hum of Federation dropships grew louder. Ethan gripped his spear, Selene at his side, their path uncertain but shared. The tribe was fractured, but they'd bought time, a fleeting chance to fight another day. The silver forest trembled, its shimmering trees splintering under the roar of Federation plasma cannons. 200 soldiers advanced, their gray armor glinting, cutting through the undergrowth with relentless precision. Ethan and Selene sprinted deeper into the forest, their breaths sharp in the cool air. Branches snapped behind them, the hum of dropships overhead growing louder. They ducked into a hidden cave, its entrance veiled by glowing vines. Inside, ancient tribal runes pulsed faintly on the walls, casting a dim light over the damp stone. Selene knelt by a rune, her metallic hair catching the faint glow. "The blood mark," she said, her voice low, urgent. "It's not just a seal. It makes you a witness, Ethan, to expose what the Federation did to me, to us." Her icy eyes met his, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through her command. Ethan touched the marks on his chest, their faint warmth pulsing under his torn uniform. The weight of her words settled heavily. His choice now carried a truth bigger than himself. Memories of his squad flooded back, their faces vivid in the cave's dim light. Laughter over rations, promises to survive, all gone, their deaths a wound that hadn't closed. Ethan's jaw tightened, doubt clawing at him. Was betraying the Federation worth this? The blood marks burned, anchoring him to Selene's cause. But the cost was his past, his loyalty, his name. He gripped the pistol in his belt, its single bullet a silent question. Crane's voice crackled through the air, broadcast from a dropship's speakers. "Surrender, Selene, or this forest burns. Every soul in it." The ultimatum echoed, cold and final. Selene stood, her spear ready, her gaze steady. "I'll go," she said, her voice soft, almost breaking. "The tribe lives if I do." Ethan grabbed her arm, his grip firm. "No, they'll tear you apart. We end this another way." His mind raced, recalling stolen access codes from a Federation terminal during the drone fight. "The command ship," he said, his voice low. "I can disable its weapons. Buy us time." Selene's eyes searched his. Then she nodded, trust solidifying between them. They slipped out of the cave, the forest's silver canopy shielding them as they moved toward the Federation stronghold, its lights piercing the night. The stronghold loomed, a fortress of steel and glass, its corridors lit by harsh white beams. Ethan and Selene crept through a service hatch, their steps silent on the polished floors. Screens lined the walls, flashing troop movements and plasma cannon statuses. Ethan found a terminal, his fingers flying over the keys, uploading a virus from the codes. The screens flickered, weapon systems shutting down, but an alarm blared, red lights pulsing through the halls. Crane's voice echoed behind them, sharp and venomous. "You're predictable, Ward." He stepped into the corridor, flanked by guards, his gray attire immaculate. "I knew you'd betray us. I let you trap her." His eyes locked on Selene, a predator sizing up prey. Ethan stepped forward, spear raised, shielding her. "You won't touch her," he growled, the blood marks burning hotter, his choice sealed. Selene moved, her hybrid speed a blur, disarming a guard with a flick of her spear. Ethan lunged at another, his training precise, knocking the soldier down with a strike to the temple. The corridor became a battlefield, sparks flying as Selene's spear clashed with steel. Crane retreated, his calm cracking, shouting for reinforcements. Ethan's virus spread, lights dimming as the stronghold systems faltered. They fought their way to an exit, the alarms deafening. Selene's strength overwhelmed the last guard, her spear pinning his rifle to the floor. Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the forest. Behind them, the stronghold groaned, its systems collapsing under the virus's strain. Flames licked at its edges, the night air thick with smoke. Crane's silhouette vanished in the chaos, his threat lingering like a shadow. Ethan and Selene sprinted into the silver forest, its trees closing around them, a shield against the Federation's scanners. The blood marks pulsed, a reminder of the truth Ethan now carried. Selene's gaze met his, gratitude and resolve in her eyes. The stronghold burned in the distance, its light fading as the forest swallowed them. Their path was uncertain, but they ran together, bound by a choice that would reshape the war. The stronghold erupted in flames behind Ethan and Selene, its steel skeleton groaning as the virus crippled its systems. They fought through the corridor, a blur of motion against Crane's elite guards. Selene's hybrid strength shone, her spear a streak of silver, disarming two soldiers in a single spin. Ethan followed, his spear cracking against a guard's helmet, his Federation training sharp despite the ache in his wounds. The air smelled of ozone and burning circuits, the alarms a relentless wail. Crane's voice cut through, sharp and venomous. "You'll never outrun the Federation, Ward. She's ours." He stood at the corridor's end, his gray attire untouched by the chaos. But Selene's spear flashed, forcing him to duck. He retreated, shouting for more guards, his promise to hunt them echoing. Ethan grabbed Selene's arm, pulling her toward a shattered exit. They burst into the night, the silver forest swallowing them as the stronghold burned, its light fading behind the trees. The forest's shimmering branches closed around them, shielding their escape from Federation scanners. Ethan's chest heaved, the blood marks pulsing under his torn uniform, a steady warmth tying him to Selene's prophecy. They ran, their steps silent on the soft earth, the moonlight filtering through the canopy in slivers. A tribal elder, his silver skin weathered, watched from a ridge. To him, Ethan was no longer an outsider, but the mediator, the prophecy fulfilled in blood and fire. His old eyes softened, hope stirring for the tribe's future. Ethan's thoughts churned as they moved. He was a traitor now, his name cursed in Federation halls. His squad's faces lingered, their deaths a weight, but he'd chosen a truth greater than their war. The blood marks burned, a seal of that choice. Selene glanced at him, her icy eyes holding a rare warmth. "You gave up everything," she said, her voice soft, almost lost in the forest hum. Ethan nodded, the pistol's single bullet still at his side. "Worth it," he said, his voice steady. They reached a clearing, the trees parting to reveal a hidden structure, its hull ancient, etched with tribal runes that glowed faintly. Selene touched its surface, her fingers tracing the patterns. "This ship," she said, "can cross 10 light years to neutral space. Our ancestors built it, long before the Federation came." The hatch hissed open, revealing a cockpit lit by bioluminescent panels. Ethan stared, the technology alien yet alive, humming with dormant power. They climbed aboard, the engine stirring with a low thrum, vibrating through the hull. Selene took the controls, her movement sure, as if born to it. Ethan strapped in, the blood marks a quiet pulse, binding him to her. The ship lifted, the silver forest falling away, its trees a shimmering sea under the moon. Stars filled the viewport, a vast canvas of possibility. Ethan's hand brushed the pistol, its weight a reminder of the choice he'd made. Word of Selene's survival spread, whispers carried on encrypted channels, sparking resistance across Federation outposts. The war shifted, a new chapter born in defiance. The elder's voice lingered in Ethan's mind, the prophecy's weight settling into truth. He was the mediator, not just a soldier, not just a traitor. Selene's gaze met his, her metallic hair catching the cockpit's glow. "The moon chose you," she said, her voice steady, echoing her words from the right. The ship accelerated, the stars streaking past, carrying them toward neutral space. Crane's threat hung in the distance, a shadow that would follow. But for now the forest's silver light faded, replaced by the endless black of the cosmos. Ethan leaned back, the blood marks a quiet fire under his skin. He and Selene were bound, not just by prophecy, but by a shared rebellion, a fight for a truth the Federation couldn't bury. The ship hummed, its ancient engines steady, carrying them into an uncertain future. The galaxy stretched before them, vast and unyielding, a battlefield of stars waiting to be claimed. Ethan's hand rested near the pistol, its single bullet a final choice unmade. Selene's eyes held the star's reflection, her resolve unshaken. Together they flew, the moon mark a seal of their defiance, a beacon in the dark.